Anybody else? Anyone open up to
Any other thoughts?
our friends? Yeah.
Unconscious consumption.
Solitaire on my phone.
Solitary.
Anything on your phone, really.
Anything on your phone.
Social media.
Yeah, social media.
Yeah, the radio.
The radio.
Yeah.
Especially in the car.
Yeah, turn it on just so it's kind of there.
Like you said, background noise.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Less so now, but we've
Yeah,
done that before.
turn it off now.
Yeah, it's off.
Yeah, what we consume impacts us, and so making conscious choices to, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is really kind of comes down to that choice, choosing to do so. So it kind of blends into conscious consumption. You mentioned earlier, like asking yourself questions. I think just that intentionality, asking yourself, like checking in, like is whatever situation, whatever environment I'm in right now, is this serving me, or serving me in this moment? Because we're constantly ebbing and flowing, and at this moment, is this background noise? Is this news programming? Is this metal music? I don't know. Is it serving what I need at this moment? And maybe it is, and that's fine. Yeah.
Adding an element of mindfulness and awareness too. How is this impacting me? And taking those few moments, or even a moment, and just inviting a question to self, checking in as I'm mindlessly or unconsciously listening to something. What do I notice? How is this impacting me? And that curiosity and those questions can help us take our power back. It can help us take agency over, maybe this music isn't the best for me, or maybe.
I think that's something to really kind of keep in mind. That, I don't know. I'm not going to go into politics today, but there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise right now, and we sometimes we can get really swept up into it, and so there's always this choice, depending on how you feel, what you need in that moment, to how are you going to basically interact with it. Okay, are you taking it in? Are you taking a break? So active participation and self-compassion.
Definitely.
Yeah, this topic of nourishing the soul is always going to come back to that idea of checking in with yourself, nourishing yourself. What do you need in the moment, and in that thought, also being compassionate with yourself.
Having a little bit of space for oneself. I don't know about you guys, but for me, sometimes making changes can be difficult. And I find myself entering back into patterns that I'm trying to get out of. And what I've found for myself is being heavy and hard on myself is non-beneficial. It's not helpful. It just kind of adds kerosene to the fire. And so having an element or practicing self-compassion or loving kindness towards oneself, it's not letting myself off the hook, but it's saying, okay, we can get back up and try again. Change is hard, change can be difficult, and it's worth it. And so I move towards that. Ashley, talk to me about conscious consumption with eating.
Oh, yes, okay. And like you said earlier, food's kind of the first thing you think of. It's obviously the first thing I think of also. And so consciously consuming, there's lots of levels to that. And like when I work with patients at the clinic, practicing our how we tune in with our body, practicing our intuition is always kind of a big, it's a practice basically. So before you even get to the eating part of, you know, your meals, hunger, you know, how can we be conscious in deciding if we're hungry, you know, knowing, it all comes back to becoming reacquainted with yourself and your body. When we're really little, we are kind of experts at what we need and what we don't need. We're real loud about it. But then as we get older, we kind of, I don't know, through jobs and, you know, societal rules and norms and et cetera, we lose touch of that. And our daily grind, our just agenda becomes more important than what our internal self needs. And so that's kind of the first thing of conscious consumption would be, you know, coming back to yourself, learning about yourself again. And then in the sense of hunger, what does hunger look like for you? Because we're all kind of different. You know, how is that expressed in your body? Also, you know, the act of eating, mindfulness is huge. It's something that a lot of us don't do. I don't even do that as much as I would like to. You know, it's when we engage all parts of us, when we engage all those senses, we are obviously consciously consuming and just taking it all in. And it goes beyond just it goes beyond what is on your plate. You know, it goes to, you know, what is your environment? You're consuming all of the maybe chaos at the dinner table, maybe not, and it's all, the meal experience is it's a more sacred thing than we often give it credit. So those are the things I would think of, or at least that I work on with patients when it comes to consciously consuming foods.
So awareness,
Mm-hmm.
mindfulness, presence, listening to the body,
Yeah.
reacquainting to the body.
Absolutely. And I'll add on self-judgments or combating self-judgment, because when it comes to the food, there's a lot of rules per se, or we subscribe to a lot of rules. And so, you know, acknowledging that self-talk and challenging it, and challenging your inner food police, because we all have one, but, you know, choosing self-compassion over, you know, negativity. That'd be a good one. How about you? What about in your field, in your practice?
Yeah. Before I enter that,
Mm-hmm.
just an invitation for the collective. Just notice anything arising. Does anything arise after some of the things that we've talked about? Is there information that's emerging or presenting itself to you? Whether that's a question, or whether that's a relatability, or that's, I didn't really consider that, or that's a new, I just invite you to be present to that, and if so, jot it down.
What are ways to consciously eat?
What'd you say again?
What are ways to consciously eat?
It's a great question.
That is a great question.
What are ways to consciously eat?
So if we're talking about, you know, the actual mealtime, actually eating, it goes back to finding and practicing just a mindfulness, you know, being present. It is so easy to be distracted while we eat. It's easy to multitask while we eat, to work, to drive. But it's, you know, there's a lot of benefit in, you know, ditching that habit. I'll call it a habit, yeah. Finding a way to make your mealtime sacred. And there's a lot of benefit with that. I mean, you know, we're, our nervous system, we want to be in a, you know, we want to downregulate into like a rest and digest, emphasis on the digest. We want to be able to really actually break down and use that fuel. And so downregulating that nervous system is very important. So the best way to achieve that, you know, nervous system switch is presence. is to put the things aside, turn away from the computer, you know, and have a meal and be, you know, express gratitude, enjoy all the bits and pieces, whether you prepared it or not. Just really find the experience of consuming sacred, because it is. So that's one way. Multiple ways.
You could utilize your senses, you know, you could prepare a visually pleasing meal and, you know, or maybe one that's, you know, different textures that you could feel or smell or, yeah, so that would be consciously.
Absolutely, and that can start from when you are, whether it's your like meal planning and you're just throwing things together from the fridge that night. It can start there. It can start with just igniting that. If you like food, I mean, I don't want to assume that everyone loves preparing food, but you know, finding that sparks of joy and that passion, and
Cheese and jalapenos.
there you go. Yeah. Just really putting forth, because there's a lot of love in home cooked meals, and it's just rejoicing in that meal that you get to eat. Yeah.
Would you say slowing down is another
Oh gosh, yes.
way to consciously eat?
Absolutely, yeah. And eating fast finds itself in, well, a lot of people, but also in a lot of health conditions. At least in my practice, I often see, and I don't want to completely, you know, say that one causes the other, but it is common to see, like, if there are some gut issues, typically there's some fast eating going on. And so even just slowing it down, doesn't have to be a long time, but, you know, taking, at the very least, being mindful of breaking down the food in your mouth, you know. Yes, so yeah, that's a big one. And slowing down in general is probably what we all need anyways. So might as well do that at a place we enjoy, which is in kind of some food.
Yeah, I feel like the more that you like something that you're eating, the quicker you're like inhaling that, whatever it is, instead of just like slowing down and actually savoring what you like.
And you gotta get your food before they do.
Yeah.
Or maybe even if you went a really long time, you were really busy with whatever, whether work or whatnot, and you just kind of went longer than you do or would usually. And so then when you do come in front of your plate and it's, yeah. So that's another part of nourishing yourself, is checking in with yourself, making sure that you are finding ways to have nourishment through the day, whether it's almonds in your pocket, you know, or something like that. Just finding ways to basically self-love through just nourishment. Take care of yourself, which can be a big ask.
It also sounds like perhaps, and maybe I'm stretching here, that a little preparation can also be considered consciously eating. So if I'm preparing, like you said, having some little healthy snacks, I think there's awareness, there's consciousness, there's intention behind that. And so we're setting ourselves up for nourishment later on by taking that time and attention and having that attitude of planfulness and intention of just in case. Just in case my day gets away from me, I have this.
Yeah. I like to tell people to treat yourself like a toddler. That is very important. Treat yourself like a little person who, when they need to eat now, and you need to have something now. So, you know, give yourself that love and care. And that goes beyond eating, you know. Like your inner self-talk. If it's you know, more, if you find yourself in a negative self-talk loop, treat yourself like a toddler. I don't think you'll talk to a toddler like that, but you know, be mindful about how would I say this to someone I really love and admire.
any other information arise for anyone that they'd like to ask or share?
Could you talk a little bit about cravings?
Because that's probably where that like
I
negative
was gonna
self-talk
say.
comes from too, is you have well, depending on what you're craving, I guess, but you know, then you're gonna be hard on yourself, like, oh, I really want this chocolate cake,
Yeah.
but it's so bad, you know, like where's the,
Finishing operating.
yeah.
Cravings, that's a big one, and it's like multiple factors there. You know, you can look at it in a sense of, I'm craving this, maybe my body needs a certain, whether it's nutrients, so there's that element. There's also this idea of when you are craving something, let's say it's Oreos, you know, kind of think before you go and buy a whole package of Oreos and eat a whole package of Oreos, think about like, where am I right now? What do I need right now? If it's Oreos, which I doubt, especially a whole package, okay, that's one thing, but what else could be going on? You know, what kind of nourishment is maybe, what other kind of nourishment is there going on right now? Because, I mean, there's the biological cue of hunger, okay, which is not the wanting to eat, it's the I need to eat, I need the nutrients. And then there's hunger as in, we'll call it like a fake hunger, you know, where maybe you just really want something and maybe it's actually what you need is self-care, you know. So cravings can be many different things. Cravings can also be a product of maybe restriction, you know. Restrictive mindsets can be really powerful. If we find ourselves restricting whether it's diet, or I'm trying to think of another thing we could restrict, but ultimately, I feel like when we're depriving ourselves of something, we're inevitably going to be craving something. We're going to be craving something that we can't have. And once we do get it, it's one of those hard to stop kind of things. So that didn't really necessarily answer your question, but cravings is definitely something to explore. I think it's something, any kind of craving that we have, food or non-food, it is something to explore with ourselves as to why am I craving Oreos? Keep on Oreos.
Yeah, I would add to that, adding an element of curiosity with that.
Yeah.
What is this about? Because they're signals. Sometimes our body is giving us signals that, yes, I am hungry. Or maybe it's, I'm stressed. Or maybe there's
TV advertising.
Yes.
some outside suggestions that's now got my mind working in a way that's, And so, I do appreciate what you said. Cravings can be layered, and if we can bring mindfulness, awareness. There's a saying often around Amma, and Dr. Sandel, he talks about awareness or consciousness is the root of health. And when we can bring consciousness around things, we can gain new information about what they are, rather than just running on autopilot or on habit of, if I have said craving and I feel a certain way and there's chocolate in front of me, my autopilot response is just to pick that up and eat that. But if I engage with a little bit of awareness and curiosity and consciousness and say, what's really going on? Has there been something that's been impactful for me? Or is there something that's stressing me? I really enjoy asking myself questions. Yes, perhaps. We'll go with it. Asking myself questions to have that information. Like, am I really hungry, or is this something that's, it's something else? And sometimes I'll take a drink of water and that craving will dissipate, and sometimes it's like, nope, I'm craving chocolate, I'm gonna eat chocolate, and that's what it is, so.
Yeah.
Um,
But,
Yeah,
but there's
yourself
but
praise
there's
about it.
like but there's dark chocolate and then there's Oreos, you know, and that's as far as like consumption goes, like from a marketing standpoint, there are like engineers and scientists hired for those Oreo commercials. Like they're making you think that you need that, and they are doing it in a scientific way. So it's like it's not just that Oreo looks good on that commercial; it's that you are consuming what they want you to be consuming.
The guy
So.
eating the Oreo looked good.
Yeah,
And-
yeah, exactly.
knowing
Now I
that-
want the Oreo.
Knowing that it's perhaps, and I don't want to speak just in generalities, but perhaps as we know that there are those elements that can be very impactful. What a greater invitation to take agency and take our power back and say, yeah, no, let me get really in sync and in tune with my being and myself, and make the choices that are best for me, not based on some outside influence or suggestion. I might be able to utilize that information, and ultimately, you as each individual have agency over your health and well-being, and feeling and being empowered to really take that into your own hands and make conscious, healthy choices for you can be really impactful. So, yeah.
So maybe if you have a craving, maybe the next time give into it, and then maybe write down like how it made you feel or what was happening at the moment or something like that, and then that just brings awareness to that.
Yeah.
Maybe the next time you have the craving, you can go, oh yeah, that really made me feel not very good,
Yeah.
or yeah.
Absolutely. We can all play the role of a scientist and run the experiment in our daily lives, and just constantly check in, and collect that data. Yeah.
And also kind of bringing that presence back and slowing down. As we kind of slow down and are mindful of those eating experiences, let's say you're eating that chocolate, well, you know, that more than likely is going to not end up in eating an entire bar, bar of chocolate, as you become more in tune, which is a practice, you become more in tune with your body and what your body needs. At some point your body is very smart, and trusting it again, like we did when we were little, is a huge practice. And so your body doesn't necessarily want to eat a package of Oreos. I don't know why I keep calling it Oreos, but
You want Oreos.
Your body doesn't want that. And once we quiet the mind and kind of put our body back in the driver's seat, is when we can kind of learn that. Welcome.
Yeah. So shifting just a little bit, you asked earlier.
In your field.
Yeah.
In your practice. How does conscious consumption?
How does that come into play? All of us, you kind of highlighted and touched on this a little bit. All of us have an inner world. We have an inner dialogue that's constantly running all the time. And essentially, whatever channel that dialogue is tuned to, we're consuming whatever those thoughts are. And not only are those thoughts, but there may also be subtle emotions that are connected to that may be influencing those thoughts. And so that's where the work that I love to do is bringing awareness to what is happening on the inside. What's the quality of our mind? What's the quality of our emotional state? And is that being impacted or influenced by something external? Or is it being impacted by our own dialogue, our own inner dialogue, our own inner thoughts about what we think and feel about ourselves, what we think and feel about the environment, and our attitude towards the world. And so consciously consuming is, again, it's mindfulness and awareness, adding that element into just asking those questions. What's the quality of my thoughts right now? As I'm watching something, what do I notice? And it's bringing that awareness back into the body of how am I experiencing this right now? Do I notice constriction in my body? If I bring awareness and I'm watching something that might be a little bit upsetting, maybe I notice now I'm clenching my teeth and I might be holding on to or gripping my fists. This is all information that we can utilize and say, well, maybe this is not beneficial for me right now, and we can make a change. And as we become more and more aware of, and all of this is a practice, right? Mindfulness is a practice, presence is a practice, and there's a saying, it's easier said than done. It is easier said than practice, and hence why we can exercise these muscles, we can exercise our awareness. We can expand our awareness. We can lift our consciousness. And we can do that by nourishing ourselves, doing things that do feel nourishing towards body, mind, and spirit. And so, yeah, in the work that I do, it's an element of it is in this subtle realm, in our thoughts and feelings about people, places, and things, self, situations, and circumstances. And so, if we could just run a little experiment, and then you don't have to share it or talk about it or anything, but I just want you to bring to mind someone that you absolutely adore, you love and cherish, and just think about them for a minute, see them, what it is that you like about them, the qualities that they are, and as you do this, just tune in and notice. What do you experience as you think about someone that you cherish? Does it bring a smile to your face? Does it bring a lift to your heart? Is there no sensation? And not putting any judgment around anything, but just becoming aware of that. Right? And so now, let's shift, and momentarily, I want you to think about a situation or someone that there's distress around. And again, just noticing what arises. You might have constriction in your solar plexus. You might notice tension in the body. And so these are all cues that information is constantly being provided and presented to us. So shift your awareness and now think about something that you love again. And stay in that state of angst. And there's real power in being able to qualify things. We can shift our consciousness in a moment's notice. What you think and what you feel, what you think about, you're there, you're with that. Whether that's a peaceful place at the beach or in the mountains, we can experience that. Or whether it's something that's stressful. And so bringing awareness to these things, yes, it takes practice as well, and it's something that we can cultivate. We can consciously practice this. That's just one element, and sometimes I go off on soapboxes, so I'll ask your forgiveness. Yeah, but again, with that, does any information arise? Anything you notice that anyone wants to speak into?
For me, it was gratitude.
Okay.
Yeah, thinking of my kids, joy and gratitude.
Mhm. And may I ask, did you notice any sensation?
Yeah, I mean, a little lightness,
Okay.
and also just kind of warmth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when we switched our consciousness to someone that there's a little tension with, literally the lightness just constricted a little bit. Like it was just, so it's cool to run that little experiment and see how you really physically feel that change so
How
quickly.
you, can become aware and notice
Mhm.
subtle changes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think all of us, well, I will presume that all of us have had the experience where we've entered into a room and maybe there is some discord that's happening and we can all kind of feel that. Like, whoa, there's some strong energy over there. And vice versa, you walk into a room and maybe someone is just like beaming and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to go hang out with that person. Right? There's this, it's energy. It's a level of frequency and vibration that's either attractive or repellent. And when we're consuming something that's non-beneficial from us, that's essentially what we're doing to our system is we're causing inharmony. And again, it's not putting a right or wrong or bad, good or bad. It's just all of this is to bring greater awareness around how is my environment and what I'm consuming, what I'm engaging with, impacting me. And if it's non-beneficial, if it's something that's like, oh yeah, this is like nails on a chalkboard, we can make that shift. And then we can begin to surround ourselves or put ourselves in with people, places, conditions, and things that are nourishing. One real strong shift for me has been music. And the music that I used to listen to when I was weed-led, oh my goodness, to the music that I consume now, it's vastly different. And there's an element of, wow, the harmony that it's remarkable and how it impacts my system. And so I intentionally, consciously choose to listen to music that is harmonious for my system. And that's going to be different for everyone. Music is just one example. For some, the music that I listen to, it's nails on a chalkboard. So it's individual, and that's okay. It's important that we take this in and we do what's most beneficial for ourselves. Because I can't tell you, nor any of you or anyone, what's good or beneficial for you. You're the expert on you. We can have conversations to bring greater awareness around how is that serving you.
It's inspiring to hear you having that intentional practice of, like, let's say the music, whether that's just a regular practice. And thinking back to the experiment we just did, if we took the time to kind of come to that place of, thinking about either something or someone that we really love and cherish, that feeling of warmth and lightness, that healing feeling, if we just practice that on a regular basis, but intentionally, how much good that would do us, our system, our health.
Yeah. There is, there's a saying in because I practice energy medicine, energy work, there's a saying within that element, and it's not just that, but what we focus on grows. Where we put our energy, we are feeding that, whatever that may be. And so if we are focused on something that is negative or non-beneficial, just by our sheer attention to that, we are drawing that back into our experience. And so we can make that change of, let me shift my focus, my attention, my energy to something that is more beneficial. And simply doing that, it cuts out that, whatever that connection was, and now I'm engaging in something that is more beneficial. And it's practical, we can do that.
It's like stopping that, you mentioned earlier, just like patterns, habitual patterns we find ourselves in. That reminds me of something I heard recently where, just like you said, when we dwell on something, we're reliving something. If we're chronically in some sort of unbeneficial, maybe we're stressed, there's some anxiety, maybe there's some trauma. And when we think about that, often our body doesn't necessarily recognize that we're not in that situation anymore.
Yeah.
It's kind of bringing it back. Our inner world and our outer world that difference becomes blurred. Our body is like, oh, we're going through this again. Yeah.
And you can have greater awareness around that just by paying attention. Like the next time you find yourself like spinning on something, that's what you're doing. You're amplifying, you're reliving, you're re-experiencing that and anchoring that in your body. And to be able to shift can help get out of that pattern. And And then I don't want to just be flippant about that. I mean, there are ways and means that we can help facilitate moving through those patterns in a deeper fashion. So not to minimize anybody's experiences, or if there was trauma, anything like that, oh, it's just a flip of the switch and there we are. No, and hopefully that's not coming off insensitive in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, we can support that at a deeper level if need be.
At the very least, contribute to a healing that maybe is needed. Yeah.
So again, pausing and just inviting any other information emerge, any inquiry or question or awareness come up.
I've decided I love the mute button on TV. Sometimes they throw the chocolate at me and I go, oh, I'm not gonna listen to it, I'll look at it, I'm not gonna listen to it.
Yeah.
That kinda helps.
Yeah.
Muting one of the senses.
Yes.
So it's not as, yeah, it's great. I love that.
Because chocolate's a big one for me.
Me too.
I keep coming back to, and I wrote this down, early on, you said, take back your power by, choosing consciously what you're listening to, and in our house, in the morning, so by having silence, I noticed that there's a refrigerator running. I noticed, so I wrote down, I take back the power by actually turning off the power. Now.
There you go.
Just turn
Absolutely.
this refrigerator down, hold away, we're gonna have silence or listen to the birds. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I'm serious, that actually, we do. I believe you. I can't listen to the refrigerator. Yeah, because it activates my, my nervous system. Like, this is not a good second. Like it.
There's interesting bodies of work. Cymatics is one of the studies of sound, of frequency, and the forms that it takes. It's a really beautiful
How do you spell that?
Cymatics. And it's really interesting. They take a metal plate and pour sand on it, and then have frequency. And as they turn up the frequency, the forms change, and you can see the shapes take on different forms. And as an extension or as a parallel to that, there's a Japanese scientist, I think it was back in the 90s, early 2000s, his name was Dr. Emoto, and he studied water.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, would freeze water, played with different music or different living water versus polluted water, and looking at the shapes that those molecules took. And and I extrapolate, just because this is the way my mind works in the field that I'm in. I mean, I geek out and love this stuff. What percentage of water are we? 80 to 90?
73, 75.
Right, roughly. And so the thoughts and the emotions that we are qualifying and giving to ourselves are impacting ourselves. And if we are more loving and kind to ourselves, to others, to the environment, there's an impact that's happening at a cellular level. And as I'm talking about this right now, I have goosebumps. I don't know if any of you, I geek out.
No, because I'm sitting here going, okay, so now it all makes sense, like, because that's the
There's
that's
these
your
sounds.
that's the energy.
And so phasiotones, I mean, these frequencies are impactful to the system. And they can soothe, and they can provide a quality of rest and ease and peacefulness. And so it's just as we expand our awareness and utilize different tools, it's like what resonates for me, what works for me, and how can I incorporate that into a more conscious way of living. It's pretty impactful. Yeah, I think there's also in Dr. Emoto's studies like prayer, water that's been prayed over, and the quality that takes on. It's beautiful. I mean, some of these images are just remarkable with the forms these things take on. And so, yeah, it's
I find I geek out. I love it.
Let's go have coffee one day. I'll geek out with you.
I love it.
I know.
Challenge accepted. Welcome. Yeah. So,
That power, that vibrational, like what you were saying with the Om.
Mhm.
I sometimes will talk to people about, again, going back to the food realm, setting up their mealtime experience and playing around with, you know, so what the Om and what that vibrational, what that frequency is doing is, it's stimulating our vagus nerve. And so that's a very important nerve that is connected from our GI system to our brain. It's actually a cranial nerve, and it helps, you know, turn down the nervous system. It helps, you know, get the digestion going. And so even if it's something like humming or singing, you don't necessarily have to sing songs before you eat, but it just kind of, you know, thinking about that, laughing is actually something that also will stimulate that vagus nerve. So that, yeah, that made me think of that power of, you know, frequency.
and vibration.
Yeah, our whole body, our organs, everything has a rhythm, and so healing rhythms, healing frequencies are a very powerful tool to use. Maybe more on that another day.
Topic to
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that too, taking away something that you find that is not benefiting you, and I'm gonna just keep going with the sound, then there's another layer. And maybe you're not even hearing the refrigerator running because you've got this background radio going.
Yeah.
You turn off the background radio, and you can just keep paring it down as much as you can in your very own environment.
Yeah.
Right.
You might not be able to turn off the buzzing light outside, the street light or something like that, but
Have you ever tried to turn off your wireless router
Yeah.
on your phone
Yeah.
and leave it off for a while?
All the time, I have
amazing.
teenagers.
Yes, yes.
See, any other tools? I feel like we've kind of sprinkled tools and props throughout.
Is there something you should start your day with as far as nourishment, as far as food? Like, how should you start your day? Food-wise or drink-wise?
Drink-wise, that I feel like that really depends on the person. I honestly, sometimes when I get food questions, I prioritize not the what you're eating, but the how you're eating, because sometimes it becomes way more important. So if we're talking, you know, starting your day, you know, water would be like one of the first examples that comes
it's
to
the
mind.
digestive system,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
and stuff.
But to pair that with something, some kind of practice, morning routines are really beautiful. They can be really beautiful. If we have the time, if we allow ourselves that space to do something regularly or semi-regularly, you know, maybe that's starting the day with some kind of like of those elevated emotions, you know, thinking about things that we're really grateful for. Sometimes doing something like that can be more productive than starting the day with, okay, I've got this meeting, I've got to do this, and then I have to do laundry, and blah, blah, blah. You know, not to say you can't do that, because that's, I mean, that
Yeah,
comes at
I'm
some
not
point.
alive enough in the morning to think that fast, so.
But really, even just drinking like intentionally drinking a glass of water in the morning when you wake up
Yeah,
really is just a start, I feel like.
absolutely. Yeah, bringing intention.
Yeah.
Intention and presence. Acclimating to the new day.
perhaps you can experiment with speaking to the water. Gratitude.
And
then drink it.
healing water, energy water.
Mhm. Hold on to it. Yeah. Let that pour into it.
Intention and presence, those questions, being in control and taking your power back. Those have all been really powerful things, yeah. Any other questions that arise of this time as we wrap up? This has been fun.
It's good. I'm very grateful.
Music at the Art Center tonight.
Okay.
There you go.